In this video, we're going to show you how to place your instrument panel cluster bulbs in your Ford Explorer located inside your instrument cluster. To start, we're going to go ahead and remove the lower dash panel or knee board here. And on the bottom of the knee panel here, there's going to be two 7mm screws. Let's go ahead, loosen and remove those. On the bottom side here, underneath our hood release handle, there are two screws here that we want to go ahead, loosen, and remove as well. We're using our 7mm socket here to remove the two screws for our hood release. Go ahead and pull this panel. You're going to release these tabs across the top and set this aside. Using our 8mm socket, we're going to go ahead and remove the bolts holding this metal knee panel. Using power tools will speed up the process. Using our 7mm socket, we're going to remove these two lower screws here. Now here in the center console where your radio would normally be, you want to go ahead and address this here. We want to go ahead and pull this trim off. So in our case here, basically we want to grab that trim bezel and pull that off. Let that set aside. That's going to give us access to this 7mm screw right here. Loosen and remove that. I'm going to go ahead and put the key in the ignition. Turn the key to the on position, not start the vehicle. You want to go ahead and put your foot on that brake pedal and bring your vehicle selector all the way down. At this point here, apply your e-brake. Make sure that you're not going to roll anywhere or have those wheels chalked. Tilt that steering wheel down as far as it can go. You want to go ahead and remove these three screws that are in the upper portion of the gauge cluster. Now these are 7mm screws as well. These normally aren't super tight. Sometimes you can spin them out by hand, or you might need that ratchet. Now with those screws removed, we want to go ahead and pull our dash cluster here. Start working this around, starting from the driver's side, and work your way right around to the passenger side. You want to go ahead and work this up. And pull this up. We're going to spin this over. Let this set. Now your gauge cluster is held in place by four 7mm screws, two on the driver's side, two on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and get on in there, loosen those there. Go ahead and work that cluster forward. And on the back side, we're going to have a couple connectors we need to go ahead and disconnect before removing this from the vehicle. And we have the gauge cluster pulled out a little bit on the back side. You can see two connectors. There's a black one up here, and there's a white one on the bottom. I'm going to start with the black one here, press in on this little spring tab on the top, and we're just going to go ahead and gently wiggle this out. I'm going to go ahead and do the same to the bottom one. The spring tab is just on the bottom of that one. Go ahead and separate that unit. I'm going to go up underneath the dash, and right here there is a little screw. It's a 7/32, and what this does is this holds our speedometer unit in place. And once we undo that screw, there's a tiny little cable here that goes up underneath, and it hooks onto a little latch up there. So we want to undo that screw, and then we're going to disconnect that little hoop up there on that hook or that latch, and then we're going to be able to pull the cluster out. And it has a little eyelet on the end here. And we'll go ahead and feed this back up and out with the gauge cluster. Now once you have your gauge out, you want to go ahead and flip this over, and on the back side there's going to be a series of these little knobs on the back. Now the ones in black are going to be your instrument cluster lights, and what you're going to do is grab these here and simply twist those counterclockwise, remove it, and there is your 194 bulb. Simply pull that out. You would take your new bulb, install that, line this up, and twist it clockwise, and you'll feel it lock into place. You're going to repeat that process for any of these other black knobs. I'm going to install our cable here. Feed that cable down. Try and work our gauge cluster back into place. There we go. On the bottom here, I'll go ahead and line this up here, push that into place. Let's go ahead and get our screw installed. And then we'll go ahead and tighten up that screw. Now when that screw bottoms out, we just want to make that a little bit snug. We don't want to make it super tight. Okay. Now I want to go ahead and install those 3 connectors on the back side of our gauge cluster. And get this connector on the back here. Press it in. You can feel it in here. It's snap into place. I'm going to repeat for the other 2. Now that we have all 3 connectors installed, let's go ahead and put our gauge cluster back into position. Let's go ahead and work the cluster into place. Remember that you have your selector cable in the bottom here. Good, tuck that back. Let's go ahead and get our screws installed. We're going to start by getting all of these started by hand first, and then we'll come on back and snug them down. Now I'm just going to tighten these down as far as I can by hand, and then we'll just come on back with our little ratchet. We just want to snug those down. They don't have to be super tight. We'll go ahead and snug those down. Just go ahead and work your cluster back around and into place. Now that you have that pushed in, press in the other side. We're going to install our 2 screws on the bottom of our gauge cluster here. Now we're going to go ahead and put these in by hand. You don't want to risk cracking the plastic trim, so just snug that gently, and then do the same for the driver's side. Install our 3 upper bezel screws. With all of them bottomed out by hand, I'm just going to go ahead and snug those down a little bit with the ratchet. Once again, don't over tighten. You just want those to be bottomed out and slightly snug. Snug that down. You can install your radio trim bezel. You just go ahead and snap that into place. Now go ahead and put your vehicle back in park and turn that key back and remove that. Put our steering up. Let's go ahead and install our lower panel on the bottom with our knee board. Now that we have them all in, let's go ahead and snug those down. I'm going to go ahead and install our lower panel here. Get our 2 lower screws installed. Release back up and into place. Get one of those screws in. Okay, so now we have all 4 screws installed. Let's go back and snug these all down. Once you have all 4 of these screws secured, you're now done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.